The golden pen trembled in the businessman's hand. It was 5 minutes to 5 in Westport, Connecticut, and the boardroom shone like a vault. On the table, the $500 million contract looked like a doorway to heaven, or a hidden cliff. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter," said the consultant with a too-wide smile. "Today, your life changes." The men in dark suits, flown in from the Middle East, watched in silence, like people who already know how the story ends. Standing quietly against the wall, a young woman clenched her hands, fighting for courage. She was not a director, not a lawyer. She was only the maid's daughter, invisible to almost everyone. And just as the pen's tip touched the paper, her voice tore through the air. "Don't sign." The cry was shaky but firm. "It's a trap." The whole room froze. The clock ticked once. Destiny did the rest. 48 hours earlier. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. On the most beautiful curve of Shoreline Drive, Ethan Carter's glass and stone mansion seemed to touch the sky. Owner of a medical technology company, he had survived brutal years, crushing competition, sleepless nights of debt, and a press eager to label him a fallen genius. This dream contract was his way back. $500 million, new capital, reputation restored, the Carter name back on the covers. In the kitchen, Rosa Alvarez stirred the coffee while watching the clock. Big houses shrink time for the invisible. Beside her, her daughter Elena scribbled foreign words into a worn notebook. Shukran, Sadiq, Wathika. She studied languages at night, picked up small translation jobs at church, and dreamed of one day earning a scholarship at the public university. Modest dreams for a girl carrying the world on her back. "Sweetheart, don't touch anything from tonight's dinner," Rosa said, drying her hands. "The boss is hosting important people. Reception tomorrow, big meeting the day after." "I'll just put the bread in the warmer, Mama," Elena answered, closing the notebook. "Then I'll help you with the flowers. He deserves for this to work out." Rosa smiled, the way only someone with faith can. She believed God never abandons the just. She had affection for Ethan, saw in him a good man being swallowed by a cruel system. Upstairs in the study, Victor Hale, the consultant, spoke like a salesman offering paradise on discount. "Ethan, you don't understand. The Al Noor Holdings investors aren't just giving money. They're giving you a passport to the big leagues. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the entire pipeline you've always wanted. Sign this and embrace it. The world doesn't hand out second chances." Ethan stared at the contract. His company lawyer, Maya Brooks, cleared her throat, uneasy. "There are clauses that worry me. The preferential option in international disputes, the transfer of patents as collateral, and the termination penalty is excessive." Victor laughed it off. "Standard for their region. Cultural difference, tough wording. They're gentlemen, trust me." Ethan exhaled, heavy. Outside, the sea beat against the rocks, counting down the seconds. He walked to the window and glanced down at the garden where Elena crossed with a basket of white lilies. Humility in motion. A thread of peace ran through him. "I want everything perfect for tomorrow," Ethan said, turning back. "The dinner, the speeches, the press. This needs to be more than numbers. It needs to be a rebirth." That night, the mansion lit up like a ship at sea. Wine crates arrived, silver borrowed, tablecloths white as snow. A divided house. The front rooms glowing with perfume and luxury, the kitchen sweating with heat and fatigue. "Elena, help with the glasses, but be careful," Rosa warned. "These are worth more than we are." As Elena lined the crystal on the sideboard, distant footsteps and voices echoed. Languages mixed in the hallway. One of the investors, Khalid al-Sayed, had arrived early with his bilingual aide. Handshakes, polite words, plans, harmless on the surface. Yet in the whispers, Elena caught sounds she recognized. "Mama, I'll be right back," she said, rushing to fix her hair. "I'll place the new flowers in the library." In the study, Ethan and Maya debated numbers with Victor when the businessman's phone buzzed with notifications. Blogs, stock gossip, rumors. Carter sells his soul. Carter's comeback. Carter disappears. The world always talks too much when it pays none of the bills. Tomorrow's the dinner. The day after the signing, Victor announced, snapping his folder shut. Quick, painless, historic, trust me. Ethan nodded, though the heart that had survived too many sleepless nights knew when something didn't sound right. In the kitchen, Rosa crossed herself quietly. Lord, watch this house. Bless the bread, bless the boss, and protect my girl. On the porch, Elena stacked empty boxes, breathing deep. The cold wind carried the sea's murmur, and with it a stray phrase slipping through the corridor upstairs. Sign and sleep. After we take the rest. She didn't understand it all, not yet. But her skin prickled. Words can be knives. The hall clock struck 10. The mansion drifted to sleep. On a narrow service couch, Rosa pulled a thin blanket and surrendered to exhaustion. Before closing her eyes, Elena wrote one line in her notebook, something her grandmother once told her. Lies run fast, but truth knows the way. The next morning, catering trucks clogged the driveway. Flowers, lights, promises filled the halls. Victor barked orders. Waiters rehearsed smiles. Guests confirmed arrivals. Everything looked flawless. Everything. Except peace. Ethan put on his dark blue suit, the one from better days. In the mirror, he searched for the man he used to be. For a fleeting moment, he felt gratitude. Maybe God still kept a way out. Maybe this contract was the bridge. Maybe his fragile faith could still carry him. By late afternoon, a black SUV pulled up. Khalid stepped out, elegance contained, followed by his aide. Smiles, greetings, photographs. A handshake soon to spread across business blogs. From a corner, Elena carried a tray of glasses. The aide whispered something in another language, and her reflexes caught it. A sound. A word. A signal. Elena, Victor barked, not meeting her eyes. Those glasses go to the living room and don't break anything, understood? She bit back a reply, served, stepped away. But as she turned, she caught sight of Maya, arms folded, brow furrowed, also watching what others ignored. Victor, too close to the guests, laughing too much, promising too much. Night fell with roses and danger in the air. The banquet would be tomorrow. The signing, the day after. But life sometimes moves the clock forward to test hearts. Maya's phone buzzed with an email marked, urgent. A last-minute attachment, a technical correction, a hidden paragraph that hadn't been in the previous draft. She read fast, froze, looked up. Her blood ran cold. Ethan, she whispered, low enough not to alarm the house. We need to talk. Now. The morning of the reception dawned crisp, with a sky so clear it almost mocked the weight on Ethan Carter's shoulders. In the grand mansion, preparations rolled like a machine. Chefs slicing, decorators arranging, assistants hurrying through hallways. But in the shadows of all that grandeur, another world moved quietly, the world of the unseen. In the service quarters, Rosa Alvarez straightened her uniform. Her hands were red from scrubbing and polishing until midnight, but she wore her tiredness with dignity. Beside her, Elena tied her hair back with a plain ribbon, balancing a tray of silver cutlery so carefully it seemed she was carrying crystal dreams. Stay out of sight, Hia, Rosa warned softly. Tonight is not for us. It's for them. Elena smiled faintly. We'll make it beautiful, Mama, even if they never see who set the table. Meanwhile, in the main wing, Ethan adjusted his tie in front of a mirror, tall as a door. His consultant Victor barged in, clapping his hands. This is it, Ethan. Cameras, investors, political figures, tonight you're back where you belong. But Maya Brooks, standing in the corner with her legal pad, muttered, back where he belongs, or deeper in a trap. Victor shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Downstairs, the kitchen buzzed with heat and noise. Elena moved gracefully among the chaos, arranging plates, refilling water, helping her mother. For a moment, she caught a glimpse of the glittering ballroom. chandeliers blazing, velvet chairs aligned, musicians tuning strings. 2 worlds in one house, one for the powerful, one for the invisible. When Rosa carried a basket of bread to the dining area, one of the junior managers stopped her with disdain. Not this way. The bread goes through the side. Guests don't want to see staff. Rosa lowered her eyes, murmured, "Yes, sir," and turned. Elena's chest burned as she watched. Later, as Elena set down glasses near the entrance, she heard laughter echoing from the arriving guests. Fine dresses, tuxedos, luxury cars rolling up the driveway. The Carters' wealthy friends, partners, socialites. And at the very edge, the Al-Noor delegation, their dark suits immaculate, their smiles calculated. Victor hovered around them like a shadow, bowing, gesturing, whispering. Too much. Always too much. As servers passed, Elena accidentally brushed shoulders with Charlotte Carter, Ethan's eldest daughter. Charlotte, all diamonds and arrogance, wrinkled her nose as if Elena carried dirt instead of crystal. "Watch it," Charlotte hissed, her voice sharp. "Do you even know what these glasses cost? If you break one, my father will deduct it from your mother's wages. Got it?" The words stung like a whip. Elena froze, lips trembling, but said nothing. Rosa, rushing in, placed a protective hand on her daughter's arm and bowed her head. "Forgive us, Miss Carter. It won't happen again." Charlotte scoffed and turned away, her laughter already melting into the crowd of privilege. Elena swallowed her pain. She looked at the ballroom glowing like heaven, and at the kitchen doorway hot and cramped like purgatory. 2 halves of one house, 2 worlds, and she belonged to the one that no one wanted to see. But in her heart a small voice whispered, her grandmother's words again, "God places the lowly where kings cannot reach. Truth needs no title." As the orchestra struck its first note, the reception began. Waiters glided through the room with trays. Toasts were raised. Laughter thundered. Victor leaned in close to Khalid and his aide, their conversation in low tones that blended with the music. And from the far corner, unnoticed, Elena's ears caught another phrase in Arabic, one that made her pause mid-step. She didn't understand it all, but she knew enough to realize it wasn't meant for polite company. Her pulse quickened. Something inside told her this night would not end with champagne. The grand reception had reached its peak. The chandeliers sparkled like constellations, glasses clinked in endless toasts, and the laughter of the powerful echoed through the mansion. The Al-Noor delegation sat at the center of attention, their dark suits immaculate, their smiles calculated. Ethan Carter stood tall, shaking hands, playing the host who seemed to have everything under control. But behind the glamour, Rosa and Elena moved like shadows. They were part of the scenery, yet invisible, until fate decided to draw the spotlight on them. Elena carried a tray of hors d'oeuvres into the ballroom, careful with every step. Her eyes lowered, her movements graceful, she weaved through the crowd. She had almost reached the table when Charlotte Carter spotted her. Charlotte's diamond necklace glinted under the lights, her wine glass nearly full. "Wait," Charlotte said suddenly, loud enough for the group around her to hear. "Isn't that the maid's daughter?" The words sliced through the music like a blade. Heads turned, laughter faded into murmurs. Elena froze, tray trembling in her hands. One of Charlotte's friends chuckled. "I didn't know family staff was invited tonight." Charlotte smirked, savoring the moment. "Oh, she's not invited. She's just here to serve." The group laughed. Ethan, busy across the room with Khalid, didn't hear. Victor did, and he smiled, saying nothing. Elena felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to disappear, to shrink into nothingness. But before she could step back, Charlotte raised her glass high. "Tell me," she said mockingly, "do you even know what you're carrying? That champagne costs more than your mother will make in 10 years. Careful, sweetheart. Don't drop it. We wouldn't want your little hands to ruin the evening." The laughter grew louder. Elena's throat tightened. Her eyes watered, but she refused to let a tear fall in front of them. And then, As if humiliation wasn't enough, Charlotte leaned closer, voice dripping with venom. You should be grateful, you know. My father feeds your mother. Without us, you'd probably be out on the streets. The words hit harder than any slap. Elena's hands shook, and one glass tilted dangerously on the tray. Gasps filled the circle as a drop of champagne splashed onto Charlotte's dress. Charlotte jumped back, shrieking, "Are you serious? Do you have any idea what this costs?" All eyes turned to Elena. Her lips parted, ready to apologize, but before she could, Charlotte snapped, "Get her out of here before she breaks something else." Rosa rushed in, grabbing the tray just before it fell. She whispered, "Come, hija, come." Her hands trembled as she pulled Elena back toward the kitchen, but the whispers lingered in the ballroom. The maid's girl. What a disgrace. How unprofessional. Victor, watching it all, leaned closer to Khalid with a sly grin. "Don't mind the distraction. Focus on tomorrow. After the contract, nothing else will matter." Back in the kitchen, Elena broke down, tears streaming silently. Rosa held her tight, whispering, "Don't cry, my love. The world humiliates the humble, but God sees. One day the first will be last and the last will be first." Elena buried her face in her mother's shoulder, but deep inside her heart whispered, "Never again. I won't let them crush me." At that very moment in the ballroom, Maya Brooks approached Ethan, holding the urgent contract papers she had reviewed. Her face was pale, her voice steady. "Ethan, we need to talk, privately, now." The music swelled, covering her words from the crowd, but the storm had already begun. The ballroom glowed like a stage, every chandelier a spotlight, every glass of wine a prop in the play of wealth. The guests, drunk on luxury, raised their glasses to Ethan Carter as if he were already a king reborn. The orchestra swelled, the laughter thundered, and the Al-Noor delegation sat like honored royalty at the center of it all. But behind the curtain of celebration, shadows stirred. Ethan forced a smile as Victor Hale guided Khalid and his aide toward the head table. Cameras flashed, investors whispered. Ethan's name trended on business blogs within minutes. It looked perfect. Too perfect. Maya Brooks stood near the back, papers clutched in her hand. She scanned the clauses again and again, the technical correction she had received that morning. Something about it gnawed at her, a legal thread waiting to unravel. But every time she tried to approach Ethan, Victor stepped in, pulling him back into the spotlight. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Rosa Alvarez stacked trays, her back aching but her spirit steady. Elena, her eyes still red from humiliation, carried another round of drinks toward the guests. Her hands trembled, but her resolve was stronger than her shame. As she crossed the ballroom, she overheard a sharp whisper from Victor to Khalid. "Tomorrow we seal it. Tonight we celebrate." Khalid's aide chuckled, answering in Arabic. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She caught fragments. Patents. Hours. Carter blind. The words stung, even half understood. She gripped the tray tighter, forcing herself not to react. At the head table, Victor raised his glass. His voice boomed across the room. "To Ethan Carter, a man bold enough to dream, and wise enough to know when to partner with visionaries from abroad." The crowd cheered, glasses clinked, but Maya muttered under her breath, "Or foolish enough to hand them everything." Charlotte Carter, dressed in silk, leaned toward Khalid with a smile too wide, too eager. "My father always knew how to pick the right allies," she said sweetly, "and with your support our family will shine again." Khalid's dark eyes glinted. His smile was polite but distant. He did not see Charlotte. He saw opportunity. Meanwhile, Elena moved silently among the guests, invisible once more. But her ears caught what her heart could not ignore. As Khalid leaned toward Victor, their voices dropped low, yet clear enough for her trained ear to pick up. "In 2 weeks, the patents will be under our control. After that, Carter is nothing." Her knees nearly buckled. She steadied the tray, swallowed hard, and forced herself to keep walking. At that exact moment, Maya finally reached Ethan, pulling him slightly aside. "Ethan, listen to me," she whispered urgently. This contract isn't clean. There's a hidden clause about intellectual property transfer. If you sign, they'll own your entire company. Ethan frowned, glancing at her, then at Victor, who was laughing with Khalid like old friends. Maya, are you sure? Her eyes burned with conviction. I'd stake my career on it. But before Ethan could answer, Victor appeared at his shoulder, smiling too wide. Come, Ethan. They want a toast from you. Don't keep them waiting. Ethan hesitated. Maya gripped his arm. Elena across the room locked eyes with him for a fleeting second. Her tray still balanced, her face pale with the weight of what she had just overheard. The orchestra swelled again. Glasses raised high, cameras flashed brighter. The banquet reached its climax. And beneath the music, the laughter and the toasts, betrayal ripened like poison in a golden cup. The banquet lingered deep into the night. Music softened, candles burned low, and the scent of roses mixed with the heavy aroma of wine. Some guests drifted away, their laughter echoing in the driveway as their cars disappeared into the dark. But in the mansion, the most important players stayed. Ethan Carter stood near the fireplace, still shaking hands, still smiling, though the weight in his chest grew heavier with every passing hour. Maya Brooks watched from a distance, clutching her legal pad, her lips pressed into a thin line. She had tried again to warn him, but Victor never left his side. In the kitchen, Rosa Alvarez dozed in a chair, exhaustion finally overtaking her. But Elena could not rest. Something inside her refused. The words she had overheard earlier, patents, ours, Carter blind, played again and again in her mind. She wanted to believe she was mistaken, but the unease in her chest would not leave. So when she saw Victor slip quietly out of the ballroom, followed by Khalid and his aide, she felt a tug in her spirit. Against her better judgment, she followed. The corridor was dim, lined with family portraits and golden lamps. She walked slowly, silently, clutching her notebook against her chest as if it could shield her. At the end of the hall, the library door stood slightly ajar. Voices murmured within. Elena pressed her back against the wall, holding her breath. Victor's voice came first, low but eager. Tomorrow, Ethan signs. He's desperate. He thinks this contract is salvation. Once it's done, Al Noor will control everything. Patents, distribution, even his board. He won't even realize until it's too late. Khalid's aide chuckled. His Arabic words flowed smooth, confident. Elena's heart pounded as she caught familiar phrases. Company hours. Carter week. Silence guaranteed. Khalid added, his tone colder. Do not worry. Once the ink dries, we move quickly. We dismantle what we need, sell the rest. Carter will be nothing but a name. Elena's hands shook. Her breath caught in her throat. She understood enough now. The contract wasn't salvation. It was a trap. Victor laughed softly. Let Maya fuss over her clauses. She doesn't matter. And the family? Too blind, too greedy. By the time they suspect anything, we'll already own it all. A silence followed, thick as smoke. Then Khalid's aide muttered one last line in Arabic that made Elena's blood run cold. And if anyone interferes, we silence them too. Elena gasped, too loud. The voices in the library went silent. A chair scraped the floor. Footsteps moved toward the door. Elena's heart raced. She darted down the hallway, her shoes barely touching the carpet, slipping into the service stairwell just as the library door creaked open. Victor's voice echoed faintly behind her. Did you hear that? Khalid's aide. Someone was there. Elena pressed herself against the wall in the dark stairwell, clutching her notebook to her chest, tears welling in her eyes. She had just heard enough to save Ethan Carter, or doom herself. Upstairs, the party's final notes played like a lullaby for the blind. But in the shadows, truth had found a witness, and now, the invisible girl carried a secret that could destroy them all. The mansion was silent by dawn, yet Elena Alvarez could not sleep. She sat at the small kitchen table, her notebook open, scribbling fragments of the words she had overheard. Patents. Hours. Carter blind. Silence guaranteed. Her hand trembled as she wrote, her mind replaying every detail of the secret conversation in the library. Rosa stirred awake nearby, rubbing her tired eyes. Elena, why are you still up, mi amor? Elena closed the notebook quickly. Nothing, Mama. Just studying. But Rosa knew her daughter too well. She placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Something is wrong. Tell me. Elena hesitated. Could she really tell her mother what she had heard? Could she put that burden on her? Finally, she whispered, They're lying to him, Mama. The contract isn't what it seems. If Mr. Carter signs, he'll lose everything. They plan to strip the company, to take everything. Rosa's face paled. She crossed herself. Dios mío. Are you certain? I heard them, Mama. I understood enough. They even said if anyone interferes, they would silence them. Rosa gripped her daughter's hands, fear in her eyes. Elena, promise me, don't get involved. These are powerful men, dangerous men. If you speak up, no one will believe you. And worse, they might come after you. Elena's chest ached. She wanted to scream. But her mother's trembling hands reminded her of the danger. Meanwhile, upstairs, Ethan Carter stared at the contract again. The papers lay spread across his desk, but the words blurred together. The celebration had felt hollow, and Maya's warnings echoed in his mind. Maya herself entered quietly, her voice steady but urgent. Ethan, I've spent the night reviewing, there's no question. If you sign, they'll control your patents and your board. This isn't a partnership, it's a takeover. Ethan pressed his palms to his face. Maya, I need this deal. Without it, we're finished. Do you understand? This company, this house, my family's legacy, it's all on the line. Maya stepped closer, lowering her voice. Sometimes losing everything is safer than giving it away to the wrong people. Ethan, please, don't let pride blind you. He didn't answer. His silence was an answer in itself. Down in the service quarters, Elena peeked through the window toward the garden, her heart pounding. She felt trapped. If she stayed silent, Ethan would lose everything. If she spoke, no one would believe the maid's daughter. Later that morning, Charlotte Carter entered the kitchen with a smirk. Elena, the living room needs dusting. Try not to make a mess like you did last night. Elena bit her lip, swallowing her anger. Charlotte leaned closer, her voice dripping with cruelty. You're lucky my father even lets your kind stay here. Don't forget your place. As Charlotte left, Elena's fists clenched. Her place? Maybe she was invisible. Maybe she was despised. But she had something they didn't, the truth. That evening, Victor Hale met privately with Khalid in the study. They spoke in hushed tones, unaware that Elena was in the hallway again, dusting just out of sight. Victor, tomorrow's signature makes history. After that, Carter will be nothing but a puppet. Khalid, and if someone tries to stop it? Victor smirked. Leave that to me. Carter trusts me more than anyone. He won't listen to doubts. Elena's stomach turned. She gripped her notebook tighter. She couldn't stay silent anymore. But as she turned the corner, she nearly collided with Maya Brooks. The lawyer paused, noticing Elena's pale face and shaking hands. Are you all right? Maya asked gently. Elena opened her mouth to answer, then hesitated. Could she trust Maya? Or would even she dismiss the maid's daughter as foolish? Before she could decide, Victor's footsteps echoed down the hall. Elena quickly bowed her head and slipped away. Maya watched her go, frowning. Something wasn't right. In the shadows of that mansion, two women carried the same truth from different directions, one armed with law, the other with courage. And together, though they didn't know it yet, they would hold the key to saving Ethan Carter. But only if they dared to speak. The night before the signing was heavy, the kind of night where even the silence felt dangerous. The Carter mansion stood lit like a beacon, but inside, shadows grew thicker with every tick of the clock. In the service quarters, Elena sat on her narrow bed, clutching her notebook. She had written down every word she remembered from the conversation. Patents. Takeover. Carter blind. Silence them. The ink smeared from her trembling hands. Rosa entered quietly, her face drawn with worry. She sat beside her daughter, stroking her hair. Elena, I see the storm in your eyes. Please, let it go. Don't risk yourself for these people. They would never risk anything for us. Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. But Mama, if I stay silent, Mr. Carter will lose everything. He's been kind to us. He trusted us. He doesn't deserve this betrayal. Rosa clasped her hands together, whispering a prayer. Sometimes, kindness is not enough to save a man from his own pride. And sometimes, silence is safer than truth. Elena buried her face in her hands. She wanted to scream, but fear tightened her throat. Upstairs, Ethan paced his study. The contract lay open on the desk, a golden pen resting across the signature line. His family was asleep, but his thoughts roared. He remembered Maya's warnings, Victor's promises, and the investors' eager smiles. He wanted to believe the best, but doubt gnawed at him like a wolf at the door. Victor entered without knocking. You're not sleeping? Good. That means you understand what's at stake. Tomorrow you rise again, Ethan. Tomorrow you prove the world wrong. Ethan looked at him with weary eyes. And if Maya's right? Victor chuckled, pouring himself a drink. Maya is cautious to a fault. That's her job. But think, will you let fear stop you from saving your family name? Ethan said nothing. He looked out the window toward the garden where the faint light of the service quarters still glowed. For a moment he thought of Elena. Quiet, watchful Elena. Something about her eyes at the banquet had unsettled him, as if she knew more than she should. Meanwhile, Elena tossed in bed, restless. Images haunted her. Victor shaking hands with Khalid, Charlotte's cruel laughter, her mother's worried face, and beneath it all, the whispered threat in Arabic. Silence them. She sat up suddenly, heart pounding. She couldn't keep quiet. But who would believe her? She was just the maid's daughter. To them, she was invisible. The next morning arrived with heavy skies. Rain tapped softly against the glass as the Carter mansion stirred awake. Staff hurried about, preparing the boardroom for the signing. Silver trays, crystal glasses, the contract placed at the center like a crown jewel. In the hallway, Elena carried a stack of linens, her steps slow, her mind racing. She passed Maya, who paused to study her again. Elena, are you all right? You've been pale since the banquet. Elena froze. Her lips parted. She wanted to speak, to tell Maya everything. But fear caught her tongue. She lowered her eyes and whispered, I'm fine, Ms. Brooks. Then she walked on, her heart screaming the words she could not say. In the study, Victor polished the golden pen with a grin. Khalid and his aide arrived, calm as predators before a kill. Ethan entered last, his jaw tight, his hands trembling slightly. As they all took their places, Elena lingered in the corridor, her heart thundering. She could hear the low hum of voices through the heavy door. She pressed her palms against it, whispering a prayer. God, give me courage. If no one else will speak, then let me be the voice. But when the doors opened and the investors were seated, Elena did not enter. She stayed in the shadows, torn between fear and duty, between silence and truth. The clock ticked closer to the hour. The golden pen gleamed. The trap was ready to be sprung, and Elena knew the next few minutes would decide everything. The rain had stopped, but the air around the Carter mansion felt heavy, as if the very sky held its breath. In the grand boardroom, the contract lay on the polished mahogany table, its pages crisp, its golden pen gleaming like a weapon waiting to strike. Ethan Carter stood at the head of the table, his face pale but composed. To his right sat Victor Hale, confident, smiling, whispering encouragement. To his left, Khalid al-Said and his aide, their expressions unreadable, eyes sharp as blades. Maya Brooks entered, her files in hand, determination in her gaze. She scanned the room, then fixed her eyes on Ethan. "Before anything is signed," she said firmly, "we need to review the final clauses." Victor laughed, his voice dripping with mockery. "Maya, always the cautious one, do you really think these gentlemen traveled halfway across the world to renegotiate? This is the moment we've been waiting for. Let's not spoil it." Ethan hesitated. His hands rested on the table, fingers twitching. "Maya, you've raised concerns before. Are you certain about this?" Maya leaned forward, lowering her voice but sharpening her tone. "If you sign this, Ethan, they will own your company. Your patents, your board, your future, gone. You won't just lose control. You'll lose everything." A tense silence filled the room. Khalid's aide exchanged a quick glance with his boss. Then Khalid smiled, calm and cold. "Mr. Carter, trust is the foundation of business. Do not let fear cloud your judgment. We offer you a chance at greatness." Victor jumped in, his tone persuasive, urgent. "Ethan, listen to reason. The world thinks you're finished. This deal proves them wrong. Are you going to let paranoia steal your second chance?" Ethan's chest rose and fell. His eyes flicked to the contract. The golden pen gleamed. He reached for it, slowly, shakily. Outside the boardroom doors, Elena stood frozen, her heart pounding so loud she thought it would give her away. She pressed her ear against the wood, hearing fragments of the heated exchange. Her hands trembled as she clutched her notebook. She whispered to herself, "Say it, Elena. Say it now. Don't be silent." But her feet wouldn't move. Fear wrapped around her like chains. Inside, Maya slammed her hand on the table. "Ethan, if you sign this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Please, at least listen to me before you decide." Victor rolled his eyes. "Enough, Maya. You've made your point. Ethan is a visionary, not a coward. Now let him sign." The room went still. Ethan picked up the pen. The golden tip hovered over the signature line. The clock on the wall ticked, each second louder than the last. Tick, tick, tick. Elena's chest tightened. She closed her eyes, whispering desperately, "God, give me strength. Please give me the courage to speak." Inside the room, Ethan lowered the pen to the paper. Khalid leaned forward, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. Victor's smile stretched wider. Maya held her breath. And just as the ink was about to touch the page, a voice rang out, "Don't sign!" The doors burst open. Elena stood in the doorway, trembling but unyielding, her notebook clutched in her hand, her eyes blazing with truth. The entire room froze. Ethan dropped the pen. Maya gasped. Victor's smile faltered. Khalid's dark eyes narrowed. For the first time in her life, the maid's daughter was no longer invisible. She was the only one who could save them all. The room stood frozen. Elena Alvarez, trembling yet unbroken, stood in the doorway of the boardroom. Her voice had cut sharper than any blade. "Don't sign." Ethan Carter's hand hovered above the contract, the golden pen now useless. His eyes widened as he stared at the girl he had known only as the maid's daughter, a shadow in his household, now standing like a storm in the center of the room. Victor Hale's smile collapsed. "What is the meaning of this? Get her out." But Elena stepped forward, her hands clutching her notebook like a shield. "Mr. Carter, they're lying to you. This contract is a trap. If you sign it, you will lose everything." Khalid's aide rose to his feet, his face darkening. "Who is this girl?" Victor snapped. "She's nobody. A servant's child. She doesn't know what she's talking about." Elena's voice trembled, but her words grew stronger. "I do know. I heard them, last night in the library. They said once you signed, they would take your patents, your board, your entire company. They said you would be nothing. And if anyone interfered, they would silence them." Gasps filled the room. Maya Brooks froze, her eyes widening as if puzzle pieces had just locked into place. Khalid's expression remained cold, unreadable, but his aide slammed his fist on the table. "Lies. Baseless lies." Elena turned to Ethan, tears in her eyes. "Please, Mr. Carter, believe me. You've treated my mother with kindness. I couldn't stay silent while they destroyed you. I know I'm just the maid's daughter, but I swear before God, I'm telling you the truth." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Maya stood abruptly. "Ethan, she's right. I've reviewed the clauses and everything she says matches the hidden terms. I couldn't prove intent. But now, with what she overheard, it makes sense. This isn't a partnership. It's a takeover." Ethan's chest tightened. His gaze darted between Elena's pleading eyes, Maya's conviction, Victor's pale face, and Khalid's silence. "Victor." Ethan's voice cracked. "You knew?" Victor stammered, his charm gone. "Ethan, listen. It's business. This is how the world works. You needed saving, and this was the price. Don't let emotion cloud." "Enough!" Ethan thundered, slamming his fist on the table. The room shook with his voice. For the first time in years, he was not the desperate man begging for a second chance. He was the man who had built his company with his own hands, and he had just seen the knife aimed at his back. Victor tried again, desperate. "Think carefully, Ethan. Without this deal, you're finished. You'll drown in debt." But Ethan turned to Khalid, his voice firm. "This meeting is over. Take your contract and leave my house." Khalid's eyes narrowed, his calm mask cracking ever so slightly. Slowly he rose from his chair. "You are making a grave mistake, Mr. Carter." Elena stepped closer to Ethan, her small frame radiating courage. The grave mistake would be trusting them. Maya moved beside her, standing like an ally she hadn't known she had. Khalid gave one final look, a look of cold fire, then nodded to his aide. The two men gathered their papers and walked out without another word, their silence more threatening than their speeches. Victor remained, pale and sweating. "Ethan, please. I was trying to save you." But Ethan's eyes blazed. "You betrayed me. You betrayed all of us." Two guards, summoned silently by a gesture, stepped into the room. Victor's protests echoed down the hall as he was escorted out. The boardroom fell silent. The golden pen lay abandoned. The contract, unsigned, rested like a weapon that had just been diffused. Ethan turned slowly to Elena. His voice cracked with emotion. "You saved me. You saved everything." Elena's eyes filled with tears. She lowered her head. "I only did what was right. God gave me the chance to hear the truth. I couldn't ignore it." For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. She was the voice that turned the tide. The storm had passed, but the echoes remained. The boardroom, once filled with tension and deceit, now stood quiet, the unsigned contract abandoned on the table like a shattered illusion. Victor Hale's desperate protests had faded down the hallway as the guards escorted him out. Khalid and his aide had vanished into the night, leaving behind only their cold threat. "You are making a grave mistake, Mr. Carter." And yet, for the first time in years, Ethan Carter felt free. He turned to Elena Alvarez, the maid's daughter who had been invisible all her life, and saw her differently now, not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as the voice that had saved his legacy. "Thank you," Ethan whispered, his eyes heavy with gratitude. "If you hadn't spoken, I would have signed away everything. You didn't just save my company, you saved my family." Elena lowered her gaze, her cheeks wet with tears. "I only did what was right. I couldn't let them destroy you. God put me in that hallway for a reason." Maya Brooks stepped forward, her voice steady. "She's right, Ethan. The truth came from where none of us expected. You should be proud, not just of surviving this, but of the courage that saved you." At that moment, the boardroom doors opened. Charlotte Carter rushed in, followed by Ethan's wife. Charlotte's eyes widened when she saw Elena standing near her father. "What is she doing here?" Ethan's voice thundered, stronger than it had been in years. "She is the reason you still have a father with a company. She is the reason this house isn't lost. Show her respect. She's earned it more than any of us." Charlotte's jaw dropped. For once, she was silent. Rosa Alvarez, drawn by the commotion, stood timidly at the doorway. Her hands trembled as she watched her daughter receive what she had never dared to dream. recognition, honor. Ethan crossed the room and placed a firm hand on Elena's shoulder. From this day forward, you are not invisible in this house. You are family. And Rosa, your years of loyalty will never be forgotten. I owe you both more than I can repay. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. Senor Carter, we only ever wanted to serve with dignity. We never expected. Ethan interrupted gently. Sometimes God hides his angels in humble places, and when the time comes, he lets them shine. The words hung in the air like a blessing. Days later, the news spread. Carter rejects foreign buyout. Insider exposed attempted corporate takeover. Unexpected hero saves billion-dollar company. But none of the headlines told the full story. In quiet moments, Ethan prayed with his family, thanking God for second chances. Maya secured the company's future, restructuring its debts with safer partners. Victor Hale faced investigation and disgrace. Khalid and his aide vanished from the headlines, their plot exposed but their pride shattered. And in the Carter mansion, things changed. The invisible became visible. Rosa and Elena no longer walked the hallways with bowed heads. They were greeted with respect. One evening, as the sun dipped over Shoreline Drive, Ethan gathered his family and staff together. He looked at Elena with pride. Courage, he said, does not come from titles, money, or power. It comes from truth. And today the humblest among us carried the greatest courage. Elena smiled through tears. She wasn't a shadow anymore. She was proof that God lifts the lowly, that justice may be delayed, but it always arrives. And as the ocean waves crashed outside the mansion, a quiet certainty filled every heart in the room. The proud had fallen, the humble had triumphed, and divine justice had spoken. Have you ever witnessed justice arrive when no one expected it? Share your story in the comments. Do you believe God always sends the truth through the least expected? Write below. Never lose hope. Justice may take time, but it always comes. And in the end, good will always triumph.